Here we go. Good morning, everybody. I'm Brandon Dukeman here with Will Harvey, and this is the Daily Wealth Junkies Show. Thanks for joining us today. We've got an exciting guest in store for you today. But first, as always, join us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/wealth junkies. We've got a ton of members in there right now. Everybody's interacting. Everybody's gaining a ton of value. And subscribe to the show so that way you're not missing any of our daily episodes. And I'm done with all that now. So let's get started with this interview, Will.
Yep. Thanks, Brandon. Today on the show, we have Brian Page, and he is the creator of the #1 Airbnb training in the world. I'm really excited for this interview. Selfishly, as we were talking about before, I have 2 Airbnbs, and I have a pen and paper right here, and I'm ready to write a ton of notes down. So
we are ready to learn.
Yep. Brian, with that, thanks so much for coming on the show. Can you just give the listeners a little bit more about your background and what got you to where you are today?
Yeah, thanks, Will. Thanks, Brandon. Good to be here. And yeah, my background is a real estate investor right out of college. Held down a couple jobs before I decided I was unemployable. Quit those jobs and was looking for some way to make money where I could build wealth. And I tried all kinds of different things that didn't work, but eventually got into real estate, started flipping homes, did really well with that in my 20s. And became a millionaire before the age of 30. And
what time frame? Like when was it? What year was this?
This was well, I hate to date myself, but 99. I graduated from school, and then immediately within a couple of years, I was into real estate and flipping and wholesaling and all that stuff. And yeah, so I got into residential real estate and built a big portfolio. Was doing quite well right up until the big real estate crash. And that was the first taste I had of I guess major failure and basically having to start over from there, trying to figure out how to do real estate again. It's all I really knew.
Right.
And decided to try to find an alternative way to do real estate, and that led me to Airbnb.
Nice. What so in hindsight, what was the reason that you had to give some properties back and that it all went downhill?
Yeah, a lot of people ask that because I do talk on a lot of real estate shows, and you know, owning real estate is amazing. I do own real estate again today, but debt is very dangerous. And I was highly leveraged. I was not only I not only had debt on my rental properties. I was doing spec real estate building. I was building multi-million-dollar homes on the beach. And I was doing it on spec. And so I was building in the riskiest market, which is high-end luxury vacation homes. Right when the market turned, so I'd say if you're speculative real estate or you're a developer, developers go bankrupt all the time. So
right.
That's very, very careful.
I was listening to you on Grant Cardone's show, and he's so funny. He's like, man, all builders go broke. You can't be a builder.
Yeah. And he was like, I love debt. I love debt. So me personally, I don't love debt. I like free and clear properties. That's what I own now. Okay. And that's just me. I'm going to be 100% prepared for the next crash, next downturn. And yeah, so that for me, that was my major setback. I had to find a way to make cash flow from properties that I didn't own because I had no desire to buy. I had no credit to buy. I had multiple foreclosures on my credit report. It was a mess. It was a giant mess. And so at that point I decided, that's it. I'm done. I don't want to have any debt in my life of any kind. And that's just my journey. And that's where I'm at now. But that kind of brought me into this whole Airbnb world, the short-term rental world. And it's been really, really fun.
What was it what did you do right after that? Did you get a day job? Did you
I did.
Okay.
I did. I don't talk about this much, but I was working for a tech company in the crypto space.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Yeah. So I worked with the founder of EOS and the guy who created BitShares and Vitalik Buterin of Ethereum and all those guys. Oh, nice. So those are the guys I was hanging out with for a while. And I had a marketing job actually for this tech company. And
was it pretty humbling?
It was. Well, I was definitely the dumbest guy in that crew. I was not.
Well, no, I just mean going from
software nerd.
Yeah, no, I just.
Oh, you mean going back to get a job?
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I mean, yeah, I was well paid there, but it was humbling. It was the first time I had to go back and get a job, 9-to-5 job, and I really didn't like it after a while. And I remember they talked me into taking the job. I wasn't even looking for a job, and so that was where I was kind of like, all right, I got to get back to passive income. I got to find a way to get back to cash flow. I'm a big fan of Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I was like, I got to find how to get back on top, because when I was in my 20s, I was living off my real estate portfolio. I was traveling the world in my 20s. I told people I was retired and I didn't have a job, and I didn't really work at all. I just lived off the cash flow. So I was missing that. I wanted to get back to that lifestyle.
So what was the first thing you did to get back to that lifestyle?
Well, the first thing I did, I was living in a 2-bedroom here in Charleston, 2-bedroom apartment that I was renting, and my roommate moved out. So instead of getting another roommate, I just thought, let's put it on Airbnb like millions of people do. Started making some good money with it. Ended up making enough to pay for the rent and all the utilities. So I was essentially apartment hacking. I was living for free. And then so all the money coming in from my job was going in my bank account. So I already felt a little bit richer there. But it was just a chance encounter with a guy on a plane. I was on a flight for work, sat down next to this really wealthy angel investor type of guy. He was a big investor in early stage companies and very, very wealthy. And he started asking me all these questions about my Airbnb. And I just thought it was odd because, I wasn't making that much money doing it. And I finally asked him, why are you so curious about Airbnb? You're not going to do this in your house or anything, are you? And he's like, no. I believe you're sitting on a gold mine here. And I said, well, why is that? He said, well, because you could go get a whole bunch of these things on Airbnb. And I was like, well, duh, yeah, but I don't own any property. I don't have the ability to buy property. I'm kind of done with that. He said, no, you don't need to buy property. You just need to control property. And if you can control it through leases, through agreements with the owners, then you can scale. And that's what that was the biggest breakthrough. That was a big aha moment. I went home right after that flight, got my first little 1-bedroom apartment, put it on Airbnb. In the first month, I made $1,600 net. And I made between $1,600 and $2,000 on that listing every month thereafter. And I thought, whoa, this is crazy. Like 1,600, 2,000, that's 10 times what I was making on my little rentals. Cause I had 1-bedroom rentals before.
Right.
I was making 10 times the cash flow. And then the next month I got another listing and another listing and another listing. And I did over 300,000 that first year on Airbnb with no properties that I owned.
That's insane.
And I built a system so that I could outsource all the work. And so then I got it fully automated. So I'm not managing all these guests. And then once again, I was financially free. I quit the job, started traveling the world again, lived the lifestyle that I wanted, and never looked back. And then one day people started reaching out to me, and a lot of people started reaching out to me on social and different things, asking me to teach them what I was doing. And there wasn't anybody teaching it. So I started teaching, and that led me into becoming this de facto expert, I guess.
Wow.
So when you say you got an apartment, how does that work? Are you?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you the story. Okay. Yeah. So the very first unit that I got, I looked at, people that were looking for tenants. So any rental that was available. So any rental in the local paper, on Craigslist, online, signs in the yard, it doesn't matter. Any kind of rental I was looking at, I would approach these owners and just tell them my harebrained idea. And a lot of them said no, but this one lady in particular, I told her she had an apartment behind her house. It was a separate entrance apartment.
Okay.
And she was asking, gosh, I think it was like $1,800 a month, something like that. It was just a lot of money. But I said to her, I said, look, I want to rent your place, but I don't want to live in it. I want to put it on Airbnb. She was like, Air what? She didn't know what that was. I said, I'm going to have guests stay there short term, but I will take care of the place. I promise it will be maintained. I'll have a cleaning company come in several times a week. I'll take care of any minor maintenance that breaks on the property, any of that kind of stuff. I'll pay you rent on time. I'll be a good tenant. And believe it or not, she took a chance on me, even though I had horrible credit. And I just used my reference of the current landlord that I had. She took a chance on me, and then that took off. And I did like $24,000 that first year on that one little apartment.
Wow.
And that was net. Okay. That's not gross. That's net profit. And so that kind of was where it changed everything. And I started learning how to talk to owners and overcome their objections, because owners have the same 4 or 5 objections.
Yeah. What are those?
Yeah. So the main objections is, first of all, people are like, oh, this is going to be too much wear and tear on my property. Mm-hmm. All these guests coming and going. So I would explain to them, I'd say, well, look, I used to be a landlord. I own lots and lots of rental units. And I know one thing, that tenants are very hard on properties too. And so let me just give you a scenario. I said, what's more likely to happen that when I say this? Is it tenants or guests that would cause these kind of problems? And I would say, somebody, for example, has their dog in the backyard and digs the entire yard up over the course of a year. Is that going to be a tenant or a guest that's staying for 2 nights? Well, it's not going to be a guest, because I don't allow pets.
That's right.
Is somebody going to paint one of the bedrooms a weird color, or put a satellite dish on the roof without permission, or leave their car in the driveway on blocks. I mean, that's going to happen with tenants.
Right.
It doesn't happen with guests. So I started explaining that. So the wear and tear is actually a lot less with guests. Guests respect the property, quite frankly, and tenants, it's a crapshoot. So that was one objection. Another objection was liability. When somebody slips and falls and hurts themselves. So I started looking into insurance. I realized there's all these companies out there that offer really inexpensive insurance to cover short-term rentals. And so I got a policy and I just paid for it for the owner. And it just came out of the cash flow I was making. It was no big deal. And so I started overcoming this objection and that objection and all these kind of things. And then I started throwing in things like, hey, I'll take care of minor maintenance. Something minor happens on the property, $100
right.
or less.
Provide even more value to them.
Yeah. So they're like, really? And so they had never met a tenant that paid them on time, insured their property, took care of minor maintenance, cleaned the property 2 or 3 times a week. And every one of them said, I cannot believe the kind of condition that this property is in. I said, well, it has to be because that's my money. Like if I don't keep this place to a 10 cleanliness, I'm going to get bad reviews.
Get bad reviews, exactly.
So I started getting people saying, well, you can have my next unit when it comes available. I've got another unit coming vacant. You want that unit? And so it was like, it was easy to get more units.
Oh yeah. I'll bet that they were like throwing units at you after that.
It was more just, I don't know if I have the time to like set all these units up. So then I started looking for places that were furnished because I learned how to furnish them cheaply, but then I was looking for furnished places. I found furnished places. And then that led into the next thing and the next thing. And then I started looking at luxury properties. And I got my first multi-million-dollar property in Scottsdale, Arizona. That does over 6 figures a year net.
Wow.
On one property. So we're now picking up multiple luxury properties in different states. And it's just kind of grown from there. And it's been great. And so I started teaching people what I do.
That's really cool. And I totally agree with the whole thing about keeping the room clean. I mean, I have an Airbnb at the house that I live at in the basement, separate entrance, all that. I never see or meet the guests, which is nice. And that room is the cleanest room in my house. It's constantly being cleaned.
Does that room pay for your mortgage?
It pays for most of it.
Most of it. Okay,
I mean, I'm in the DC area, so it's
pricey.
It's really pricey here. Yeah, the rent multiplier here is horrible, but
yeah,
it's still it pays for most of it, and it's really cool. So, but I was going to ask, this is something that I've always wondered: how is that income treated? Is it treated as passive? Is it earned? What are the tax implications like? Because you don't get depreciation, right?
You don't get depreciation.
Okay.
Now, I'm not an accountant, so I'm going to be very careful what I say.
Sure.
And also, I believe that if you ask 10 accountants to come up with tax strategies, you're going to get 10 different answers.
Right. Absolutely.
I like aggressive accountants. I have very aggressive accountants. But some people don't like that, and they like to play it safe. But I can tell you this: the rent you pay, the utilities you pay, the cleaning fees you pay, all of that is deductible from the income. And so, yes, you don't get the depreciation, which traditional real estate investors, to be fair, are like, well, why would you do that? You should just buy the property. And I do agree that owning properties is one of the best ways to build wealth, and you can pay down the debt and build your equity by having these tenants or these guests pay for it. That's all great. But I was looking for an easy way to get started. And for the average person, this is much lower risk. So yeah, I mean, I hate to answer accounting questions because my accountant handles all that. I'm not an expert in that. But I can tell you that for me, at least, I can write off most, if not all, that income, so I don't pay a huge tax bill at the end of the year, because Airbnb will 1099 you.
Yeah, and there's no way that you're talking about your property that does over 6 figures. There's no way that you can buy a property and it does that without you paying cash for it.
Well, not without short-term rentals. If the owners were willing to do it, they could make 6 figures. They'd make more, right? Because they marked the property up to me, the tenant.
Yeah, but I'm saying with their debt after the debt that they pay on the property.
Yeah, well, no, they can still remember the market rent on a property is usually always higher than the debt service. So they're making hopefully some cash flow.
No, I understand. I'm saying that you're not having to put down a bunch of money buying.
Oh, you mean the 20% down?
So it makes way more sense. Even though you're not getting the depreciation, it still makes
for the average person.
Yeah,
a lot of people are limited. They don't get into real estate investing because 20% down is required if it's not a primary residence. Yep. They don't have the credit. They don't know where to buy. It's too risky for them. There's too many variables. Whereas with this, you can literally, the day you find the property, the next day, if it's furnished, you can list it on Airbnb and you have cash flow. It's like so easy. Why wouldn't you do it? Yeah. And if you like buying properties, you could do both strategies. You can buy, and you could lease. So either one, or you could partner with owners, which is a whole nother thing that we haven't talked about, which is really sexy.
Have you done that?
Yeah, let's talk about
Yeah.
that.
So when you partner with an owner, you no longer have to sign a lease. You don't come up with a deposit. You don't come up with first month's rent. So now you're in no money down. You can find a furnished place, no money down. You're offering a service to the owner. So you're not doing any kind of long-term commitment. Yes, you make less, but 50% of nothing with no money invested, your ROI is
no risk.
Infinite. Right. So when you say partner with an owner, explain what that means. So,
okay, so we'll role play here. For example, Brandon,
Yep.
let's say you have a 2-bedroom available for $2,500 a month. Mm-hmm. It's for rent. So I approach you and I look at your 2-bedroom and I say, Brandon, huh?
I actually kind of do.
You kind of do. Okay.
So
I'd approach you and I'd say, Brandon, I love your apartment here, your condo, your townhouse, whatever. I love this place. I'm really interested in leasing it like right now, but I got something you might want to think about. What if I could show you a way to make more than $2,500, maybe as more than $3,000 a month on this place with no extra work on your part, no extra risk, and no long-term commitment. Would you be interested to hear how you could do that?
Yes.
You'd be like, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's what I'm going to do, Brandon. Basically what I do is I work with homeowners to turn their properties into short-term rentals on sites like Airbnb. And what I do is I manage everything. I manage the guests, I manage the cleanings, I insure your property. So if there's any damage or any liability or anything like that, you're covered. And for that service, basically all I keep is 50% of the profit. So I will guarantee you your $2,500. Even if we don't book $2,500, I'll guarantee you that. And then if we make another 1,000 or another 2,000 on top of that, we will split that 50-50 and you'll do nothing. And at any point you can tell me to take a hike because it's only month-to-month agreement. So if at any point you don't like it, you let me know. And then, so there's no commitment for either one of us. Are you interested in trying that with me? And you'd be like, I guess, yeah.
That's
so
beautiful.
At this point, now I can either furnish the place. Let's say it's not furnished. I can furnish it, or I can say, okay, Brandon, here's what we're going to do. I would recommend that you invest into furnishing this place. Could you consider doing that? I think it would cost about $5,000 to get this place furnished. And you're going to make that back very, very quickly if you invest a little bit more in your property. And so I have students that did this. This is not my idea. So one of my students, she actually charges 10 grand and 5,000 of that is her fee. So she makes $5,000 when she stages a property, which is incredible. Wow. Yeah. So she loves staging. I mean, that's her thing. So she makes money staging, makes money doing Airbnbs. So now now let's say it's 2,500. It's very, very easy to double that cost on Airbnb. So let's say it makes 5,000 on Airbnb. So now we brought in another 2,500. Let's say 500 of that goes to utilities and expenses and stuff like that. Now it's 2 grand. So you make a grand, I make a grand. So I make a grand a month, which would change a lot of people's lives if they had $1,000 coming in on one little listing. Takes a few hours to manage every month. I mean, it's no time involvement. And now I just created cash flow out of thin air, and you're winning, I'm winning. That's the partnership model. And that's great for people that are afraid to sign leases. Now I love signing leases because I get to control the property long-term and I get 100% of the profit. So I don't mind signing leases, but some people see that as risky. So I like to do 2 different strategies.
That's pretty cool.
You're blowing my mind here, and you're really making me want to.
Yeah. So
because some owners don't have the time. I mean, I have real estate investors all the time. They're like, I do not have the time to do this.
Yeah. I mean, I have two open bedrooms in my house right now that just.
And honestly, for the amount of work and no extra work for you, it would almost be a better deal for you to do that, unless you want to be doing the Airbnb business, as a real side gig.
Yeah. There's a lot
So I got a girl that's doing this model, partnering. She's in Snohomish, Washington. Her name's Tia. She's like 26 years old. She has, 10 of these. She just broke $400,000 in bookings this past 12 months. She's only been doing it a year and a half. And prior to this, she was a bartender. No real estate experience.
That is awesome.
So she's the one who's doing, making money on the staging, making money on the cash flow. So she's killing it, but she's not the only one. A lot of people are doing this model that are students of mine. So it's cool. You can start out that way and really, I mean, almost no money out of pocket. You can start creating this money.
So when I hear Airbnb, initially I was under the impression that they were mainly in kind of like big cities and things like that. Are they, for someone who's in a more rural area or suburban area, is Airbnb popular there too? Can it be utilized, or is it kind of less effective?
There's a bunch of misconceptions about Airbnb. I'll just give you the 2 big ones. Number one is that it's in metro areas and it only works in big towns or maybe large cities. It's not true though. I actually thought that was true too, or that it only works in tourist destinations like where I live in Charleston.
Right.
But it's just not true, because I've now had over 10,000 people have gone through my training. So I've surveyed these people. I know where these people live. I know what towns they live in. I know how much they're making. I've surveyed hundreds and hundreds of people, if not over 1,000 people. And I found that there's no correlation to what size town they're in. So I'll give you an example. There's a guy named Durin. He lives in a town outside somewhere in rural Maryland, like way out away from any of the cities. And his town is 6,500 people. And he's got 3 or 4 listings on Airbnb. And I'm like, who is coming to your town? He's like, I don't know, but there's no hotels here. So there's no alternative but for people to stay in my Airbnbs. And of course, his Airbnbs are dirt cheap to rent because he's in a town of 6,500. So he's doing well. And I've got students in very small college towns, Boone, North Carolina, and all these, little college towns that are killing it. I've got many students that have places in rural areas, like truly rural areas. For example, ranches in Texas are killing it right now because people want the ranch experience. I got one guy that's got 5 cabins in rural Canada. I was like, who goes to your cabins? He's like, I don't know, people that just want to get out in the middle of nowhere and stay in cabins.
I don't care.
Another guy that's buying single wides and putting them just outside the national parks like Yosemite and Yellowstone.
That's such a genius idea.
Just putting them on land and making a killing. I got another student that's doing Airstream trailers. He rented an Airstream for $200 a month. He's making $2,000 a month on Airbnb with that Airstream in someone else's driveway.
That's
so
insane.
So you can do it with all kinds of different things. So that's the first misconception, is it only works in large cities. It doesn't. It works in all kinds of different sized towns. Anywhere there's a hotel, there's a need for short-term guests, because that's what hotels exist. So if you see a hotel there, it was probably built by somebody. It's a multi-million-dollar hotel. It's because it's there. It's only there because there's business. So anywhere there's a hotel, there's potential for a short-term rental. And then the second thing, big misconception about Airbnb, is I already blanked on what that was. The second misconception is that you have to own the properties, that it has to be your property to list. And Airbnb doesn't care. Now, you want to get the permission of the owners. I don't teach that you should sneak around. You should get it in writing with the owner 100% before you do anything like that.
That's right. You're not saying sublease rent, tell a homeowner, hey, I'm going to rent
I'm going to live in it, and then you sneak around.
Right.
No, that will bite you.
Right.
I've had students that have done that and they've gotten serious trouble. You don't need to do that. You just need to find an owner that's cool and chill and like, yeah, I like this idea.
Yeah, even if you have to give up some of your profits, like you said, you're still 50% of something's better than 0% of nothing.
Yeah, one of my listings, a 2-bedroom, the guy said no, and it was $1,200 a month. And I said, well, would you do it if I give you $1,300 a month? And he's like, okay. I was like, wow, $100 extra.
Yeah,
it made no difference.
That was easy.
Yeah, and so that thing nets over $2,000 a month. So what did I care? In fact, that place needed to be painted. It was a mess. And some people don't want to get into this, and that's fine. But it was a mess. It needed to be painted. And so I said, will you paint it? He's like, no. I said, will you pay for the paint? He's like, yep. So I paid a painter to go in there and paint it over the course of a couple of days. I think it was $500 in paint, but that was well worth it considering it's a $2,000 plus profit every month.
So basically, if someone out there is listening and they have no real estate experience and they want to get into something, they really don't have an excuse. If they're rural, if they're in the city, there's ways to do this no matter where you are. Doesn't matter.
Yep.
Right.
Oh, let's cover something real quick on that, because
you
can't do this everywhere and people want to know about the legality all the time. So we did a big survey with a research firm, like over the course of 6 months. We researched every single city and town in North America that's larger than 30,000 people, which is like 2,000 cities, by the way. And we found that 9 out of 10 of them allow short-term rentals and 10% do not. So if you're in one of those areas that's 10%, let's say New York, San Francisco, some of the larger, more expensive places to live where the hotel industry is very, very powerful, Airbnb is essentially not really possible there.
Okay.
Unless you own the property and you jump through a whole bunch of hoops. So what I recommend is that people who live in those areas, you just look around the city. You just drive 45 minutes out of town. And, if you're in New York, go over to New Jersey and get listings there. If you're in, Denver proper, you can drive to the suburbs. I mean, there's all kinds of different options. So, so it can still be done anywhere. It just can't be done in every single city and town. So if you're in an area where it's restricted, that's no big deal. You just got to find the next town over where it's not a problem.
That's easy peasy.
And from what I understand, you can kind of have a property manager for these. That's kind of what you're doing for them.
Well, not a property manager. I call it a virtual front desk.
Okay.
So on Airbnb, the biggest job is communicating with the guests, because it's like you're running a little hotel, and they're going to constantly be reaching out with requests. Your cleaning company will be your eyes and ears. So you're going to hire a professional cleaning company, so you don't have to make beds or clean toilets or any of that kind of stuff. So essentially, your cleaning company knows when to go out. And then your guests need to be managed by you, but you can hire that out now. There's services that do that. There's tons of companies that exist to just support Airbnb people.
I have a VA that does both of mine for me.
Yeah, you can hire a VA.
Yeah.
Exactly. You can hire a VA in Philippines for $5 an hour, and they'll do whatever you need.
Exactly what I've done.
There you go. So you're already ahead of the game. And there's also services where you can just pay them a percentage, and they specialize in Airbnb. But either way, you want to get it off your plate because you don't want to be a hotel manager. That's right. I mean, who cares about giving up a couple percentage points of your profit? So that's what I teach, is also how to automate, which is very important when you get past 3 listings, 4 listings, that you don't want to be doing it yourself.
Okay, that's awesome stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, how? Brian, so where does somebody reach? I know we're gonna get the more of this at the end of the show.
Yeah, there's a lot. How does someone reach out for this? Cover. Yeah, so what I'd recommend is you go to bnbformula.com if you want to just check out. I have 700 video testimonials on there of people that have been through my training and learned from me. So BNB Formula, as in Airbnb, bnbformula.com is my main website. We can learn more about me and people I've worked with and been endorsed by and all that kind of stuff. But the best thing to do is, if you want to learn, is I do have a book. It's called How to Become Financially Independent on Airbnb. It's an easy read, of course. You can get the book, but I would recommend getting the audiobook because you can download it instantly. It's $2. And you just go to brianpagebook.com. So Brian with an I, brianpagebook.com. And that's the audiobook. And you can download it instantly, listen to it. And it tells you all the details, especially people that want to know numbers and want to know, exactly how I did this over time and all that kind of stuff. It basically tells you all the details. So check out the book, and that's awesome. Probably the first best thing to do.
I'm getting my copy because I got to figure out. I got to figure out what I'm doing here.
Yeah, I mean, people's got a lot of time off now. It's right around the corner from Christmas. When you're tired of talking to the relatives, pop the audiobook in, listen to it, and see what you think.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, Brian, I know you got a little bit of time constraint today, but we're going to jump into our Moments of Truth segment here. It's the same 7 questions we ask everybody. Who is your success role model?
My success role model. Wow. Okay.
Maybe we should have went over that one before.
Wow. Yeah. I didn't think about that. I have so many role models that it's hard to narrow that down.
Who's a recent one?
Recent one would be Grant Cardone, I would say.
I love it.
I don't agree with Grant on everything, and I don't want to work as hard as Grant, but he is freaking amazing. And as far as brand building, marketing, all that kind of stuff, I got to meet him recently.
Yeah. How'd you get on his, we wanted to ask that. We were always wondering that. How'd you get on his show? That was so cool.
Long conversation. Let's just say it's let's say it's a relationship. It's all who you know. So I got to talk to him, and I've been down to visit him several times, and we're talking about doing business together long term and stuff. So that's really exciting. So Grant Cardone's amazing. Let's see who else. Russell Brunson. I'm getting ready to go to his event in a month. So I love what he's done and his company. And then of course, countless authors that I read that are many of which are not alive today are mentors of mine. I would say the top person would be Dan Kennedy.
Okay.
I would say Dan Kennedy.
Great.
Well, Brian, before we go on to the next question, I'm going to plant the seed right now. Our goal is to have Grant Cardone on this show within 1 year of launching. So,
wow. Okay.
Like you said, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. Or that's what Grant says. Not about who knows you. Whatever.
You can do it. You can do it. I have a podcast myself, and I'm always reaching out to big people.
So
I love it.
Yeah, you can do it.
I love it. What's your biggest success?
Biggest success. Well, actually, that happened this week. We just on my online training and my B&B training, my company just surpassed $10 million in sales.
Wow.
So yeah, that's
congratulations.
That's a big deal.
Huge.
And it's not just about the numbers. It's also, that represents 10,000 people that have gone through my training. So that's really what is the biggest motivator, is seeing people that are like emailing me and saying, holy crap, like my life changed after learning what you teach. So that's really exciting.
And it sounds like you got some movers and shakers out there in your program. So
yeah, I mean, I love Airbnb and I love real estate, but I really love the most is teaching.
That's great.
That's great. What's a typical day for you look like?
Wow. That can be totally different depending on what time of year.
time do you usually get up?
I'm an unusual real entrepreneur. I only work 9 to 5 between those hours.
Okay.
That's it. I don't work weekends. I don't work nights, which is highly unusual. And I do enjoy taking time off to travel internationally. Although right now I have a baby and another one on the way, so we're not traveling much these days.
Congrats.
But normally I travel several months a year. And I go to a dozen countries a year.
And that's what you build the freedom for, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's me. That was always my dream. Travel is my number one motivator.
Yeah.
Very cool. What's your favorite quote?
Favorite quote is actually not by anybody famous, but it's from a movie called The Edge. And it's the quote is, "What one man can do, another can do." And if you really believe that, then really anything that somebody has done, you can do yourself. It's rarely because of genius. It's rarely because of someone's background or some kind of lucky break. It's that they were willing to do something that most people are not willing to do. So once you realize that you can do just about anything that someone else has done, it opens up all kinds of possibilities. And that's what I've always believed, and I think why I've been able to have some success.
That's really good.
What are some of your hobbies?
Oh, wow. I haven't been asked that one before. I love boating and sailing. I'm always on the water. I like driving fast on a racetrack. I'm into sports cars.
Oh, nice.
So I do that pretty regularly.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, I like fast cars. Anything that moves. And I would say definitely travel. I'm a seminar junkie. I love going to seminars and personal development as well. And reading is a big thing with me too.
Love it. Very cool. On that topic, what's the best business book that you've read?
Wow. Okay. There's a lot of good business books, but I would say the best one I've read in the last 3 years would be Deep Work. Deep Work by Cal Newport is the author. It's about how to do meaningful work in a distracted world and how to go deeper with what you do and essentially accomplish in an hour or two what most people would take a day to do.
Deep Work. That's good.
That's important.
Write that down.
It's good. It's the kind of book that it's not an easy read, but man, it is really, really good. So I can't recommend that highly enough.
Yeah. That's great.
The last question here, Brian, if there's one key piece of advice you could leave our listeners with about achieving success, what do you think it would be?
Something I got from Tony Robbins, which is model other people. Find somebody who's done what you want to do, and then model them as closely as you can. Unless you're trying to do something that's never ever been done before. If you're trying to colonize Mars, like Elon Musk, that is great. But most of us can't be Elon, and nor should we try. I think that's great if you want to do a moonshot. But if your dream is to be like X or do X, just find somebody that's done it and either learn from them, mentor that with them, or model them as closely.
Copy them, yeah.
Copy them, yeah. Steve Jobs says, "Great artists copy. A good artist copy. Great artists steal." So I don't think you should steal people's stuff, but you can certainly model them.
Absolutely.
And if you ask them if you can model them, then that's even better. And I've modeled a lot of people that I've been able to actually meet after the fact. So that's been cool.
That's great.
I think that's great advice. So, Brian, real quick again, where can name of your book and website for training to check it out?
Yeah, so bnbformula.com. If you just want some general information, go to brianpagebook.com if you want to get the audiobook. And then I also have a podcast called Digital Titans. Digital Titans, I interview the top online entrepreneurs in the world. And that's every single week. And you can just Google that and find that on any of the major podcast stations.
That's great.
That's great. Well, Brian, you have blown my mind today and definitely opened my eyes to a lot of things. I'm sure plenty of the listeners are sitting there trying to think how they can kick their little brother out of their house or little sister out.
Well, I hope it helps people. I hope they enjoyed it. And thank you guys.
Absolutely.
Definitely. So, and for our listeners, don't forget, join us on Facebook at facebook.com/groups/wealth junkies. And don't forget to subscribe to the show so that you're not missing any of these mind-blowing interviews that we're having every single day. So again, Brian, we appreciate you being on the show today.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.